Okay.
Blooper.
There we go.
Hello, fellow writers. I'm Lewis. That over there is Tolkien, and you have found the Scripturian Society.
Welcome, everybody.
Hello again.
That is, as she said, that's Karissa Harlow. That's the Lewis to my Tolkien. I'm Tolkien, the Tolkien to her Lewis, Ash O'Rourke.
Yep.
Yeah. In
That's
case you
us.
wanted to know our real names, I mean,
Yeah.
it's not really that important.
You can call me Lewis. It's fine.
You call me Lewis. It's fine. I was looking at potential Christmas gift ideas for you this morning, and one of them was like, "What name do you want to put?" Like, it was like a custom thing. Like, what name do you want to put? And I was like, Lewis, perhaps. And then I was like, they're gonna think it's for a boy. And I'm like,
Right.
maybe it doesn't matter. I don't know.
Interesting. I'm intrigued now. I already have
Right?
yours picked out. I just have to order it.
See, so wild, man. I knew it. I knew it when you texted me and you're like, so colors. And I was like, and yes, colors. And you're like, what would you wear for colors? And I was like, this is too specific of a question.
Yes. I'm asking for zero reason, totally random, no importance.
Oh God. See, now I'm like feeling the pressure. Like, I got to get you a really good gift. And I had some like fun stuff saved, but now see, I want to get you
a really good birthday gift. So
well, yeah, but still I want to get you something awesome. So we'll see. I'm afraid to get you like, I don't really know what you have like with bookish stuff, because I want to get you something bookish, but you have so much bookish stuff and so many books that I'm like, do I dare? And you have very strong opinions about books. So I'm like, what if I get her something that's related to a book and it's a book that she actually hates?
It's true. I mean, you could have given me a list of specific books and I can tell you how I feel about them, which is what I did with the colors. I gave you specific options.
This is a very good idea. Okay, thank you. This is an excellent idea.
Food for thought.
Okay, that'll help.
Speaking of books and bookish things, so for those of you that missed it, I guested on That Pretentious Book Club last week with The Darkest Minds, which is my favorite book, and I literally could not function for a couple days afterwards because reading that book just like grinds my life to a halt because I am so obsessed with it.
You and Kendall were both like literally melting down about it all week, like literally melting down. And I was like, okay, I'm the only one who's like, yes, this is a good book, but I'm okay.
Yeah.
You guys were like, I'm physically not okay. You don't understand.
And it was like, I knew I had to move on because I have like things in my life to do. So I was like, okay, I'm going to give myself 24 hours to just wallow and let this sink in. And then I have to stop. And that's what I did. But every now and then I find myself sinking back into it. And I'm like, nope, you are not allowed to think about it. Do not think about Liam. Do not think about Ruby. Do not go through all of those scenes that you love. You are focused on this thing instead. And it's getting better, but it was a process.
I was stalking Alexander Bracken's Instagram and I was like, I didn't realize it, but I have been picturing Ruby looking like Alexander Bracken. I didn't know it. I was like, oh my God, she's exactly what I thought Ruby would look like.
Yes.
It's so weird.
I love it.
But Karissa joined us for our That Pretentious Book Club episode, and it was awesome. You guys should go check it out. God, it was
the episode
so fun.
was also awesome. The book is also awesome. So awesome things all around.
Exactly. Read the book and also go listen to the episode because it was a good one. That was like one of the funnest that we've done.
Yay. It's exciting. How was your week? Aside from, because that was my week. My week was trying to get over my reread for like the 5th time of this book. That's what I did. So what did you do?
Well, I edited that episode.
Yeah.
And I edited and I rushed through all my work so that yesterday I could have one day of break before today. We're recording 2 episodes. Tomorrow I'm editing these episodes. The next day I'm recording and editing an episode for That Pretentious Book Club. And the next day, and this is on top of I have work all day every day. Cat, thank you. Sorry. Flora was trying to eat the leftover feta from the bottom of my salad bowl. I've been eating healthy. I ate a salad yesterday. I ate a salad today. I had a turkey wrap wrapped in lettuce for lunch.
Wow. Okay. So I had an avocado the other day, like yesterday, I think. And I'm eating the avocado. I'm like, gosh, this is so good. And it got to a point where I was scarfing it down and I'm like, I think I might just be depriving my body of fruits and vegetables. And now it's like, give us all of the avocado. Because I meant to eat half and I ate two avocados. It's like, I need nutrients. I'm like, all right, I hear you, body. I will give you better food from now on, or at least try.
So funny. That's so funny. That's when I was doing Noom, I hit that point finally where all of a sudden my body was like, hang on, this is exactly what we need. And then I was like craving vegetables, which has never in my life happened. Currently not craving vegetables.
Yeah, it takes some time. Once you get used to it, then you're like, ooh, peas sound really good right now.
Yeah, exactly. And you're like,
then you're good.
Carrots.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, French fries would be awesome.
I know, I'm like Dr. Pepper and coffee. It's pretty much my diet.
I'm having Diet Dr. Pepper right now. So, nice. The chemicals they put in it aren't necessarily any better for you than sugar. But I have a sugar problem where if I have any sugar, I just crave sugar really badly. So if I avoid it, it's not quite so bad.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, have you done anything since our recording?
No, not really.
How's NaNoWriMo been going for you?
Oh my gosh, so bad.
Same.
I have not written anything since day one. Now, part of that,
better than me.
Yeah, good. That's right. You were behind already. Part of it is because I read The Darkest Minds, and that is a process for me. I have to take time. I can do nothing else when I'm in that book.
That's true.
So I budgeted for that a little bit, but also I don't know. I just haven't been motivated to write, and I have gone back to rereading my original 9, and I'm like, I know I shouldn't do that. I know I need to query the first one and work on a new project. But I'm like, gosh, after The Darkest Minds, I was like, I need something comfortable that will help me get out of this.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. So now I'm like, great, I have to reread all 9 again. So it's just trading one obsession for the other. But at least this one is a gateway into better things.
See, my hardcover of Space Alien Southerners and Saving the World, guys, go check out my book, by the way, it's on Amazon. My hardcover finally came in. Then I'm just like, so I want to, even though I just read it because I edited it, I want to read it like in book form. But I have literally no time to. I mean, I have done no NaNoWriMo. I've started thinking about outlining, and I found some character questionnaires I want to give a shot this time. But I'm actually thinking until I get back from my anniversary, I just don't think I'm going to have time because I'll be working on podcast stuff plus my normal job literally up until like the evening, like right before we leave. So I just think I'm going to have to be doing like half of a NaNoWriMo.
So yeah, fair. Because my goal with NaNoWriMo wasn't even words. It was focus on this project instead of the old project. And I've already failed at that. So
mine was to see how far I could get. And so I'm like, I guess we'll see how far I can get when I get back from my trip.
2 weeks in.
But because we have some extras, like we're recording in advance for the Victorian Society, we're recording in advance for that pretentious book club. I still will have like a gap week, which is nice. I mean, not like a whole week, but almost. So I'm like, well, okay, instead of having to like focus on recording and editing that week, I guess I can like make that my week to finally, because I will have no other excuses, knock on wood, actually work on the book.
Right. Yeah. So I guess I always find this really interesting. Because you said you wanted to read it in book form. Do you think it's a bad idea to read your book once it's published in book form? Like, will you notice all the issues that you'd want to change? Not even issues, but like word choice differences and that kind of stuff.
You know what? I haven't before. It's not the word choice so much that you notice as it's like, you're like, oh my God, there's a double period on page 84. The whole book is ruined.
So no longer like, perfect.
Exactly. So any tiny little flaw like that, like a single misspelling in the whole book, repeat words are common because a lot of times like spell checkers don't catch those. So whenever something like that pops up, you're like, I want to die. I want to die. This is horrible. My whole book is ruined. So that stuff is just like a nagging irritation, but actually reading it, I mean, it depends. Like reading it like soon after you've published it, pretty fun actually in book form. I think if I go back and read it a year from now, there's a good chance I'll be like, not as good as I thought it was. But I don't think, because I've waited this long, I don't think I'll be like, oh, it never should have been published like I did with the first books that I published, which I went back and read and was like, oh no, what was I doing? This one, I don't think I'll have that strong of a reaction, but I'm sure I'll go back in a year and be like, I could have changed some stuff and made it even better.
And I think that happens because you improve over time. And so even though it was good for you at the time and even good objectively, you're like, man, I could do so much better now.
Yeah, that's exactly what
every book as your last book.
Exactly. That's the thing. So, I mean, I don't know. I think you just have to go into it instead of like, you cannot go into it with an eye of critique after it's been published. Like, that's it.
Because I've always heard that you shouldn't once you're published, you shouldn't read the copy. But my thing is that I like to highlight my books. I like to highlight all my favorite quotes. So I'm like, I would have to read it through at least once to highlight all my favorite parts of my own book. But that kind of defeats the purpose. But it does make sense doing it immediately after, because you probably wouldn't catch those mistakes because you didn't catch them before.
And it's kind of like, because you usually have been like through so many editing drafts, it's almost like the first time you get to enjoy it since initially writing it. Because you're so focused on how can I make it better and all like the technicalities of editing. I think when I finally get the chance to, hopefully in the next few weeks, actually sit down and read my book in book form, I'll actually get to enjoy it like this for the story instead of being stressed about like working on it. So I want to maybe I'll do that on the airplane. I don't know.
Cool.
Yeah.
Something
maybe
to do.
maybe I'll make Javi read it on the airplane.
That's right. Does he read any of your stuff?
No.
Is that your call or his call?
I guess both. I don't ask him to, because I think that what he'll do is say, yeah, babe, I'd love to. And then like 3 weeks later, I'll be like, so have you read it yet? And he'll be like, no, I forgot. I'll get to it. And then I'll be annoyed because his timeline and my timeline, I think a lot of girls can relate to this, because like, it's just a lot of dudes, their timeline for everything. They're like, we have endless time to get stuff done. And I'm like, you have a finite amount of time before I blow my lid.
Right. Like you may have, 50 years left, but I don't have 50 years left of patience.
Exactly. So just very different timelines. It kills me. So that's primarily why. But he does read fiction, which I like. I think if I asked him to read it, he probably would read it as quickly as he reads any other book. The thing is, like, he's been rereading Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone now for like 4 months. It just takes him a really long time. He gets distracted.
It took me a second to process that. I was like, 4 months. Yeah. What?
Yeah. His priorities are really video games, anime, movies, reading. So it takes him a long time.
Can't relate, but I guess I get it.
Yeah. It's almost like you could reverse those in priority for me. I think because it's reading, probably movies, anime, video games. Yeah. I still like them. It's the same reason why he's like, I got you the fairy tale video game you wanted like a year and a half ago and you haven't finished it. And it's a really simple game. And I'm like, I'm doing other important things right now.
I'm getting stuff done, dude. Leave me alone.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the same thing, but in reverse. So no, he doesn't read my stuff, because I'd be like, why are you not done yet? But we're going to be trapped on a plane for hours and it's not a long book. So maybe I can be like, you literally have nothing else to do right now, and I'm going to sit here and stare at you the whole time.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's kind of like with my parents. I have been writing the same book for like 13 years, and they have gotten about 8 chapters in over that period of time, and they stopped at this point where there's this very inconsequential granola bar, like the character's eating a granola bar. And my dad, every time he brings it up, he's like, so what's happening with the granola bar? I'm like, least important part of the book. Least important part. I took the granola bar out because I was like, is this accidentally like a detail people are noticing, or is it just my dad?
I'm sure it's just your dad. Knowing your dad. Your father cracks me up. He's so funny.
He cares about and hones in on the weirdest things.
I can so see that. That is so funny.
So I very vividly remember where this granola bar happens in the book, because I know that's where they stopped reading. And it wasn't because it was like bad or anything necessarily. It's just they were on a vacation and then they got distracted and then they never picked it up. It's been like 5 years.
Yeah.
So I get it.
Yeah. My mom, she reads everything I send to her pretty quickly. Like, it's sometimes if it's just on a computer, it's harder. Like, she really wants it printed out, which I get, because I'm the same way. I'd rather read stuff on paper than on the computer. But it's hard to know if she's being objective, because she's like, I'm so proud of you no matter what. And I'm like, thank you for the like healthy parental support, but also
can you critique the heck out of this, please?
Yeah. I'm like, what would you think if this is a book you picked up on the shelf? Would you be like, I spent too much money on this?
Right. This sucks. Who is this?
And she's like, this is just amazing, Ash. You're just so talented. And I'm like, thank you. Yeah. Maybe you're right. Maybe I am perfect.
You're like, wait a second. This is my mom.
Oh yeah, this is my mom. She's very, very supportive. She has a hard time saying mean things even to people who deserve it. So
yeah, it's true.
Oh God. Well, anyways, what's our word of the week for this episode?
All right. So our word of the week is Absquatuate.
Oh,
Do you know what this means?
No, I just love it.
Oh, okay.
Absquatuate?
Absquatuate.
Like
so it's
Sasquatulate.
Kind of. It does sound like that.
Uh-huh.
So it's Absquatuate. And it means to leave abruptly or to discreetly leave a party or gathering without informing the host.
I was straight up about to be like, hey, that's how I leave parties. And then you were like, to leave a party or gathering. And I was like, yeah. Oh my God.
Yep.
So
it's awesome.
We absquatulate. That's how we leave parties.
Yeah.
Or Sasquatulate. If I forget to shave.
There you go. I was thinking something
like,
because it's like without telling the host. So it's like, I wasn't having a good time. So I absquatulated.
That's so funny. I know a friend who, I was at her wedding and her and the groom literally left without telling anyone.
They absquatulated their own wedding.
Their own wedding, and they were like, they told me, but they were like, don't tell anybody. And I was like, why? And they're like, we don't want to send off. And I was like, they literally were like, do not tell. People will figure it out. So people were like, hey, have you seen the bride? And I was like, no, I haven't seen the
look over there.
Anywhere. Yeah, I think I saw her in that direction, like towards the bathrooms or something. Yeah. They straight up absquatulated from their own wedding. Yeah.
Good for them.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yep.
Anyway, so I thought that was fun.
That is fun. Do you have any?
I was gonna say, I think that's a real introvert thing to do. So I figure a lot of us can relate.
I know. So, probably like all of our listeners
can too, but
but probably all of our listeners are like, yes, absolutely. I didn't know there was a word for that.
Right?
That is,
now you can use it.
Yeah. I like to absquatulate parties.
So yeah, just use that in casual conversation and wait for people to not get it.
You're like, you like to Sasquatulate? And you're like, yes.
That does have anything to do with Bigfoot.
My mom loves Bigfoot.
I have a little cousin. She's my second cousin once removed, and she's like 4, and she tells everyone that Bigfoot is her brother. And she drew a family portrait with Bigfoot in it.
Oh my God. That is the sweetest thing I've ever heard in my whole life. That is so precious.
Yep.
Aw, what a little weirdo.
I know. We call her, we're like, so how's your brother? She's like, he's fine.
Ah, that's so cute.
And she has an actual sister. So
she's like, it's not a lonely only thing.
Yeah.
She's like, no,
that's something I would have done.
Had. Yeah.
Yeah. It's something I would have done as an only child, but she does it as the youngest of 2.
She's like, no, you didn't give me the brother that I needed. Yeah. So I'm going to make him up.
Straight up, Bigfoot is my brother. So it's cute.
That's so cute. I was going to ask if you have any book recommendations for people this week, but I think I know what your book recommendation is.
The Darkest Minds by Alexandra Bracken. I did also read Through the Dark, which I had said was a series of short stories, but it's novellas. So I mean, it's super different. But it's 3 novellas taking place in like that world. Mm-hmm. And I really liked those. The last one stressed me out like in a happiness way. So, I mean, there's that.
I'm sorry. How do you get stressed out in a happiness way?
Because I was trying to remove myself from the universe. And I was like, okay, I love Ruby and Liev and Chubbs and Sue. So I'll read stories that don't have the 4 of them in it. And then they make a guest appearance in this story. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm back to where I started. I love them so much.
Oh my goodness.
But
that is too funny. I don't know if you guys can hear that. It sounded like a train, but I don't remember there being a train near this apartment. That's totally a train. I've never heard a train out here before.
That's weird.
That's so weird. Wow. Okay, that's what that was, everybody. Also, you can probably hear Flora chewing her food because she decided she's hungry right now, and her bowl's right over there.
Nice.
God, I could still like literally hear the train in the distance through my headphones.
It's like a really distant but really, really loud train.
Yeah, I guess so. All the other trains are just quieter. It's weird. Anyways, I don't have any book recommendations because I would just say The Darkest Minds. It's really good. Yeah. Other than that, no other book recommendations. Actually, you know what? I do have one.
Okay.
Sword of the Seven Sins by Emily Collin.
Oh yeah, that's right. You did.
Yes.
That's not a secret, right? You didn't.
No, it's not a secret. No.
Okay.
So exciting news for That Pretentious Book Club, our sister podcast. On Thanksgiving week, that Monday, I think it's the 22nd, we have a super exciting special episode coming out with Emily Collin. She's a New York Times bestselling author of The Memory Thief and The Dreamkeeper's Daughter. And her new young adult series, Sword of the Seven Sins, her conclusion to that trilogy is going to come out in next summer 2022. So we got to do like a really awesome interview with her. And for all of our Script Training Society writers, you would get really get a kick out of it because she spends a lot of time talking about her writing process. And she's also a teacher, so she's super well spoken. And that's why I'm like, okay, I think I actually found a way that I can outline my book without being like dragged down with the outlining process. And like, I'm also like, okay, I am going to go do like a character questionnaire because I used to do them and I just kind of did them the wrong way. So I was just like, this is useless to me. So like it was really inspirational for me as a writer listening to her talk, and not just about her book, just about, writing and publish. She talks about publishing some too. So that one is coming out Thanksgiving week at That Pretentious Book Club. You guys should go check it out. Also, that's my book recommendation, Sort of the Seven Sins. It was very good. Cool. The male lead, Ari, in it, is very much my husband. He's very Hobby, and Hobby is not like a lot of male leads in books, like Liam Stewart. Precious, pure soul and Darkest Minds, most adorable young man.
Not at all like Hobby.
Nothing like Hobby. Nothing Zero like Hobby. Common. Zero in common. But Ari, however, from Sword of the Seven Sins,
there you go.
A lot in common.
All
so
right.
I enjoyed that book immensely. I also enjoyed The Darkest Minds. But yeah.
I mean, yeah, if you guys are like listening to me and you're like, oh gosh, this book sounds like I'm over exaggerating or something, it's very possible that you will just like it a normal amount. And that's fine.
Well, I don't know. I thought Kendall was going to like it a normal amount, but she freaking loved it. And she gave it 5 pinkies up. You gave it 5. I gave it 4.75 pinkies up. And I just like it as a normal book. So I think you could say objectively, it's a very, very good book.
Yeah. And I don't think I mentioned this, so I'll just say it real fast. I think part of the reason reading it now, it's so good, is because it's very 2012. And so many books these days feel different than that era of writing, so it just feels like something new, even though
2012 YA was like the ultimate. That's where it was at.
It is,
man.
That's really the style I still write in, so
I don't know if it is or not. I mean, I pretty much just reread YA fiction from then, so I would assume if any of my work is influenced by it, it would be similar, but I don't know. I don't know. My Space Alien Southerners and Saving the World, first of all, it's new adult, so it's slightly different in that sense. And also it is so very different from anything I thought I'd write. Yeah. So I don't know.
It's really hard to find a comparison. Like, if you liked this, you'll like Ash's book, because I've never read anything.
No, contemporary sci-fi, you guys.
Yeah.
I've never read
call
anything.
it.
It's like chick lit meets thing. No, it's chick lit meets science fiction.
Yeah.
So
it's good.
I can't make any recommendations. I just go check it out. It's fun. I think you can read a sample for free on Amazon. So yeah.
Cool.
Anyways, what's our theme this week?
All right. So our theme is Chekhov's gun. We're gonna be talking about that. If you guys don't know what that is, I will explain it.
I don't know what that is.
I know. So we talked about it last week, and I was like, I think we should do the episode on Chekhov's gun. And Ash is like, what is that? And I had a moment of, did I make up this concept? Like, because it was so weird to me that you didn't know, because it's a theater thing. It's a playwright thing. And you're way more involved in theater than I am.
I wonder if I'll recognize it when you talk about it.
You probably will.
I don't know.
I just thought to myself, I'm like, did I make this up? But then I was like, no, where would I have gotten the word where would I have gotten Chekhov
I know Chekhov. I'm not remembering what Chekhov's gun is.
Yeah. So I did not make it. I looked it up to make sure that it was not a concept.
So part of me wonders if our episode is going to get blocked because we are saying Chekhov's gun and it's a weapon. And I wonder if we're going to get blocked because it's got a weapon.
I mean, I hope not. I wouldn't think so.
Because since it's a writing philosophy.
Yeah. It's not, I mean, it's not a literal gun. It is, but it isn't.
It is, but it's a metaphorical gun.
Yeah. So I'll just jump right in. So Chekhov's gun is the concept that if you bring in an element in like the first act of your play or your story, your book, whatever, it needs to be utilized or become important by the end of the book. So the comparison is, if you say that there's a gun hanging on the wall in the first scene, it needs to go off by the end of the play. So essentially, it's kind of contrary to the idea of red herrings, that you shouldn't plant details that are ultimately going to be unnecessary.
Yeah.
That everything should play its role and, be important. And so the criticism of this is that if you do this too literally, it becomes formulaic and people can predict where your story is going. Because if you only say, oh, there's a gun on the wall, everyone thinks, okay, so the gun's going to become important later.
Yeah.
And okay, what was that we went to see a play at GCU.
Oh my God.
What was the
All My Sons?
Yes, All My Sons. And I think about that every time this comes up because the gun is literally on the wall and it's literally going off by the end.
Yep.
So
that was a very traumatic.
That was intense. It was my favorite play we went to see there, though.
Of course, it was your favorite.
So
that
good.
Is so funny. I liked The Mousetrap. I think it's Agatha Christie's Mousetrap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one was fun. That was a good one.
But anyway, so yeah, so you don't want it to become formulaic, but I think a good rule of thumb is that you should plant a couple red herrings amongst or within, you know, an important detail so that people know one of them is important, but they don't know which one. Which I think is a pretty good rule of thumb. But you could go, I don't think you should go too far on the side of the red herring. So red herrings are great. Red herrings are obviously details that mislead and ultimately don't come around to being important. If you want an example of how to use those well, series of unfortunate events is great.
Oh, that's funny.
It's literally a whole theme of one of the books. But anyway.
Oh my God.
I think
that would so frustrate me.
It's so good. I think people can overdo the red herrings or make accidental red herrings where they weren't doing it on purpose. So I do think you need to be somewhat purposeful in the details that you add. So I looked it up, and Chekhov's gun, the concept came from a letter that Chekhov wrote to someone. And Hemingway criticized it because he says that he includes all kinds of details that ultimately don't come around to being important.
That's so wild that Hemingway would say that.
I know, but he said something about how he does concede that if you add details that ultimately don't come around, people will analyze the heck out of it, even if you didn't intend for them to. It's kind of like the idea, if the curtains are blue, is that important, or are they just blue curtains?
Yeah, exactly.
And so I think you want to be careful that you don't accidentally mislead. You can give red herrings and you can do things to you know, add some tension and, you know, what's going to happen next kind of thing. But you do want to essentially plant things in those first couple scenes that give the reader a little bit of insight so that by the time you get to the end, they've kind of forgotten the detail, but when it comes back up, they remember what it was.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think, okay, I'll use Darkest Minds because this is what I keep thinking about. So spoilers for Darkest Minds, everybody. I hate amnesia, just so we know. So I'm gonna lead with that. But I would say The Darkest Minds is the only book where amnesia happens at the end, and I'm still furious. I still hate it, but I'm not like, you shouldn't have done that, because Ruby's problem, one of her problems, she has so many problems. One of her biggest problems that has, you know, creates so much conflict in her life and in her world is that she develops this psychic power. She can like control minds and stuff. And she accidentally wipes her parents' memory of her when she's 10 years old. So now she's got this big ongoing fear that she's going to wipe someone's memory. And she accidentally did it to her friend. So she got sent off to this horrible camp where these kids are like kept and made like to do forced labor and stuff because everyone's afraid of their powers. And she accidentally wipes her best friend's memory of her. And then at the very end of the book, all of a sudden she wipes her love interest's memory of her for his own good. And it's like on the last page. And I usually would have such a problem with this, but I think you could call this an example of Chekhov's gun. Maybe not the tightest example of one.
Right. It's not an object, but it is heavily foreshadowed.
Exactly. It's not an object, but it is like if she had wiped her parents' memory and then she has this ongoing fear of wiping someone's memory on accident, but then never did it again, it would be like, okay, why?
Why was this an issue?
Yeah, exactly. So that did come full circle and make it so impactful. And so that is the only time I've read amnesia in a book and then not been like, that was such a cop out, you shouldn't have done that. I still hate it, still furious, but I'm like, this was
still tears at my soul.
But this was very well set up from the beginning. Yeah,
I agree. It's a good example of that. I just thought it was so funny that you'd never heard, and you probably just haven't heard that term specifically, but I was because it's a very theater thing.
It's so funny.
It was about plays.
I mean, I studied plays. I took a lot of theater history and theater like writing classes and stuff because I was a minor in theater. I don't recall it. Maybe I learned it and I just forgot it. I don't know. I retained a lot more about like ancient Greek plays for some reason. I don't
Fair
know
enough.
why.
Fair enough.
Oh, man.
So yeah, I mean, I'm kind of trying to think about what else to say about it because I feel like there's simultaneously a lot and almost nothing. Because it really does come down to how to foreshadow. And I do think a good way to foreshadow, regardless of the genre, is to have some kind of object that is casually mentioned in that first or second chapter, whatever. It was originally a play thing. So in a play, obviously it's visual. So you can just kind of have something sitting there. You don't have to mention it. But in writing, you have to more casually bring it up to let people know that it's there.
I would say even in a play, you would either want an actor to pick it up or interact with it or say something about it, because like set dressings can be very complex. You could have like a bunch of books on a shelf. You could have, a globe that no one touches and that's not relevant. I would still say it needs, I think regardless whether it's a play or a book, it needs to have, your Chekhov's gun needs to have attention drawn to it, even if it's just for a brief moment. Like it needs to be clear. Everyone's focus needs to be on it for just at least a split second.
Yeah. And I know kind of when people talk about plot twists and all that stuff, writers feel like we don't want to give too much away because we want it to be surprising when it happens.
Yeah.
And there are readers who will pick up on it if you even kind of briefly mention it because they're looking for that, particularly in something like a murder mystery.
Yeah.
But that's kind of their reward for paying attention. And not every reader is going to do that. I don't read books that way. I don't read them to try to figure them out unless it is specifically a murder mystery. So I usually fall victim to the plot twist. I'm usually like, oh my gosh, I see where it's coming from, but what?
Yeah.
But not every reader reads like that.
Yeah. I don't want to surprise. I don't want to ruin the story for myself. So I don't tend to think too deeply about it. So it just depends. I don't know. I think sometimes Kendall has picked up on like plot twists before they happen. Yeah. I don't know if that's how she's reading or if she's just like smarter than me.
I do think it has to do with how you read, because especially since I tend to read really quickly. So if I start a book, I usually finish it within 24 hours. I think my brain just doesn't have enough time to think through what I tend to read going on. And I like that because I like to be surprised by it. So you will have readers that are looking for that kind of thing. And it's their reward, I think, for doing that they sense the plot twist coming. Yeah. But then you'll have readers that won't. And you do want to make it clear to them what's going on so that they're not confused when that ultimately comes around.
Yeah.
So I think
a really great way to apply this, because it's, this is the first that I've heard about Chekhov's gun, but because it is essentially, it's very intentional foreshadowing.
Yeah.
And that's something I used to struggle with a lot, but I realized lately this is where outlining is really helpful. Like I do tend to be a pantser and just write whatever comes to mind. Yeah. But this is where if you make an outline, even a really loose one, you can like look backwards and make sure that you've foreshadowed this big thing that's going to happen at the end, or the plot twist that's going to happen, or the murder weapon. Like, that like you can go back and check and see like where you foreshadowed it, or just knowing what's coming helps you to naturally like have that in your head and then you incorporate it in when you're writing.
Exactly. So it is harder to go back and add foreshadowing because you tend to have to rewrite a lot of stuff. If you know it ahead of time, it comes more naturally as you're writing. Exactly.
It's really hard to go back in and add foreshadowing. And I've tried to do it before to multiple books and it just feels so disingenuous because I'm like, well, that's not part of the story because it wasn't there when I wrote it. So that's where like, even if you're not into like super detailed outlines, and I'm really not, like even just knowing like, okay, here's our starting action, rising action, here's, the climax, falling action, resolution, or whatever it is. And then a couple plot points in between, like just knowing like those, first of all, will help with writer's block because you know where you're working towards. But then second of all, it can help you naturally foreshadow things. It is, if you're a pantser, this applying Chekhov's gun or any kind of foreshadowing is going to be significantly more difficult.
I was thinking about it too with series because I always thought it was so clever. And I loved this in the Harry Potter series. So spoilers for Harry Potter, but you probably know what happens in those by now.
For real.
That in book 2, Harry accidentally destroys a Horcrux, right? When he stabs the diary and stuff. Yeah. And by the time I got to book 7 and I read that, I was just so blown away by that. I'd never seen foreshadowing done across a series that way before, and I was so impressed.
Yeah.
And so I try to do that pretty
Yeah.
on purpose. I think two things that are sort of related. So one, I think if you're going to write a series, your first book, I think if you're going to do it well, it's not just the lead in and the opening to the series. I think it also needs to be a foreshadowing about where you're heading.
Yeah.
And it needs to have importance in and of itself, and then also across the major themes of the whole series.
I agree.
I don't want to give too much away about mine, but mine is a little bit by accident and mostly just by editing them so many times over the years and becoming so familiar with where I'm going.
Yeah.
Book 1 is an enormous hint about where ultimately you're heading in book 9. Yeah. And I don't think that's giving away too much, but I think that that's important. And I also think it's important to plant clues along the way, because that ultimately builds to whatever plot twist or conclusion you're going for in your last book. And you don't want to pull the rug out from under readers. You want to give them enough information where they can sort of see where it's going, even if they don't know all the details. So you give them the gist to understand, or you give them enough to understand the gist, but then the details are the things that make the plot twist work.
I agree.
So like when the gun is on the wall, you don't know who's going to fire it, but you know that someone is. And so you're kind of on edge when people go near it. You're kind of on edge when people start fighting. You're on edge knowing it's going to be used. But then if you plot twist well enough and it's used by the person you don't expect, or it's used on someone you don't expect, that's where the plot twist is really satisfying for all parties involved.
Yeah.
And I think that works in standalones and in series, that you should be foreshadowing the whole way.
I agree. I think it's easy to forget that your first book should not only, it should be foreshadowing within itself, like the big things that are going to happen in the book, but you really should be foreshadowing what's going to happen in the rest of the series, which is where I tend to not really think ahead. Like if I do an outline, it's just for the one book. I don't think at all into the rest of the series. I'm like, that'll take care of itself when the time comes. And it technically will, but it's not nearly as potent. It's not nearly as complete of a story as if I had thought about, okay, what can I foreshadow in this book that's going to become a theme in the next book and the next book. So that's where you definitely want to sit down before you get too far into it and at least think about, okay, what themes do I want to carry on throughout? Like if this story goes on into another book or a series of books, like what themes do I want to carry on? Is there something that I can throw into this book that's going to be like, oh my God, now I see the whole picture when you get to the next book or the ending book.
Exactly. And I think obviously book 1 has to be able to stand on its own. First of all, because some people won't read past book 1, but second of all, because you want it to be justified as its own book instead of you don't want your series to come across like you're publishing one big book in serial form. You want to make each book its own thing. So it does have to have its own individual theme, but you plant the clues in various conversations or in objects that you see around. So for instance, in mine, there is my main character is kind of going on this treasure hunt where she's looking for this object that a lot of people don't think exists, and she's hunting it down, and all of the clues to find it are in a fairy tale for this particular country. Now the fairy tale has a bunch of other stuff in it aside from that one particular object. And those other details come up later. So readers are aware of that being in the story at that point, even though it's not relevant to book 1. So you kind of blend them in where they're not red herrings. They don't
mislead you, and they're not purposeless necessarily.
Yeah, they're there for a reason, but they come up not in the first book. They come up later.
Yeah.
So
I think a fun twist on the red herring thing, I mean, this is how I would approach red herrings. I actually did write cozy mysteries for a while. I ghostwrote them. I'm not allowed to, because it was ghostwritten, I'm not allowed to say who it was for, but suffice it to say it was for a industry name in the genre. That's what they said I was allowed to say about it. So I used to ghostwrite cozy mysteries for an industry name in the genre. And first of all, it's cozy mysteries. So the overall quality level of acceptance that we're seeing there, different. But first of all, I still tried to give it some quality, and I still wanted to put there was a formula they gave you for you need to have X, Y, and Z, and it included 3 to 4 red herrings, no more than 5 or something like that. Something like that. But the thing is, I hate to throw a red herring in for no reason at all. So you need to make your red herrings also have a purpose. You can give them a different purpose though. So the red herring part is I'm bringing in this character. I'm making them look really suspicious. And right now you're going to suspect that they are the murderer or something.
Right.
But then when it comes to it, oh, they're not the murderer. It was a red herring. But maybe they have a lead on who the murderer is or something. Like, you need to give them a purpose. Otherwise you're just like, well, wasting my time.
Right. Like, I don't know, this just occurred to me to do a twist on the Chekhov's gun thing. If you have the gun hanging on the wall, maybe people assume it's going to go off, but maybe it doesn't. Maybe its importance is different. Maybe its importance is
maybe it's used to frame someone.
Yeah. Or it's not about the gun going off. It's about someone stole that gun from someone else.
Yeah.
Like a crime, or, you know,
that is so fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that
something
kind of
like
stuff.
that. Yeah. Where it seems like it's Chekhov's gun, that it's the important part, but it's not, but it still plays a role.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's just a useless red herring.
Yeah. And that just feels like,
fun.
No, it's really not fun. It feels like filler. It feels like just kind of disingenuous.
Yeah. It feels like you're trying to trick people.
Yeah. It feels like you're trying to trick somebody, and not for their enjoyment, just because like it's a plot device and you're supposed to trick someone, which is a bummer.
It is.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think of an example. I do think Series of Unfortunate Events is a really great example of red herrings and how to use them. I can't remember which one it is. It's like toward the middle of the series. Is it the 5th one, the Ursat's elevator?
I didn't read them.
Well, okay. It doesn't matter which one then. And so essentially, you know, the Baudelaire orphans are at this auction. And there are these initials that keep popping up with the people they're looking for. And so one of the auction items matches that acronym. And so they're like, this is the thing we need to buy this. That's where we're going to get ahead of the bad guys. So they put all their effort into this, and it turns out it was a red herring, that the bad guys had purposefully given it those initials so that they would be distracted by it while this other thing is happening. So red herring, but also plays a role in the plot because it distracted the main character so that this other thing could be going on in the background. So, I mean, I guess that's a good way to do red herrings too, but you always want to give them some kind of importance, even if it's not what readers think.
Yeah, I agree.
Go
for it. You go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I also think that, I don't know that it's a red herring to give a list of things, not specifically a list, but to mention 2 or 3 things in that opening scene, and then only one of them ends up being important, because then it kind of it's not as misleading. You know, one of them is important, but it's not all of them. So
yeah, I agree. I think that's fine, as long as if you draw attention to it again, you only draw attention to the one that actually has some importance again, just because you don't want to waste your reader's time. Right. My one of my books, the one that I'm querying, that I've had I'm not currently querying because I'm writing a new book instead of spending my time querying like I should still be doing, but it's one that I've gotten quite a bit of positive feedback from agents on, people who have been requesting samples and stuff. And that one is, apparently I'm just like really into making up weird genres of my own, because it's like a fantasy, but it's also kind of like a mystery. Yeah. But it's like, and I know they exist, but it's just not like the most common. Like it's a pretty much like a 50-50 split on what the book is, which is it was also not intentional. I don't know how it happened. But I'm thinking back on it now, and I'm trying to think, like, did I have enough red herrings?
Right.
I think maybe
enough details.
Maybe I didn't plant enough. I'm looking back and thinking, like, I think I accidentally enough executed Chekhov's gun. But I'm not sure that I included enough red herrings in between to make it interesting. I feel like readers could very quickly guess. And I'm like, I'm not really sure I want you to guess that quickly. I would like there to be a little bit more intrigue. So maybe that's something I need to look into, is how can I add some red herrings in without making them completely purposeless, which will at this point require a bit of a rewrite, because
I'm thinking, so this is the Irish mythology one, right?
It's not Irish mythology.
Oh,
but it is inspired by Larney Castle and Poison Gardens. It's that one.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. I think I know. Because I was going to say you could use other mythology things that you didn't use as red herrings.
This is very true. I could go heavier on I'm going to make a note. I could go heavier on the Irish mythology part in that one.
Exactly.
Because I have one series that's all about Irish folklore. This one is just like set. I use like a Ireland as like a
Wait, have I read this
inspiration.
one?
I don't know. Have you?
I read the Irish folklore one.
I don't know if you've read this one.
Okay, maybe I don't know what you're talking about then. I mean, I think you could still add the mythology.
No, I could though, because I don't think I talk about, so the setting for this book is, it's like in this kingdom, and this is all fantasy, but it's inspired by Ireland, where this kingdom is. Specifically Blarney Castle and Poison Gardens, because I went there and it was amazing. And I'm like, God, I love the idea of a poison garden. So so the main character, she's like in charge of mixing the poisons. So it's so cool. Anyways,
what an awesome job.
She's so good at her job. I'm getting distracted now. So it takes place in like this, hang on. I have no idea what I did. I put down the wrong time code that I needed to fix. So it's set in this time in their kingdom's history where they're like, they think that they are too progressive. They've, progressed past the point in believing in magic. They're like, science is real. Yeah. Magic isn't real. Right. But I keep trying to drop hints that like, no, magic is hella real. And so I don't want to give too much away about this one either, because I do think at some point this one will be published traditionally.
It's so hard to talk about your own writing when you don't want to give away your plot twists.
It is, yeah. I don't want to give away the plot twist. I guess it's not really a plot twist. It's kind of the whole concept. So nobody steal my ideas. Trademarked right now. It's mine. So there's basically, and I wrote this before COVID, by the way, but there's a plague sweeping the kingdom. So
I would look like that too. Anyway, go on.
Like, what the hell? Anyways, so basically they learn that there is a cure, but they're trying to find the cure the whole time, and they think somebody might be hiding it, and they're like, why would someone hide the cure like that? Why? What would be their motive for trying to like kill off this whole kingdom?
Right.
And basically like just trying to like track it down, and there's a handsome roguish criminal, and he makes a deal with the poison master, because she's like in charge of executing prisoners and stuff. So anyways, it's all very fun, but it's this mystery about like who has the cure, who knows where the cure is, and they think it's all science based. And so she's like very like, I'm too smart to believe in magic. I know everything is science, but the criminal comes from a different kingdom that still believes in magic and folklore and mythology. Right.
He's like, we should broaden our search here.
Yeah, so we should broaden our like what we're considering exactly. And she's like, hell no. And I'm not sure where I was going with this now. But yes, foreshadowing. I need more red herrings, but I realized I don't have a ton of like very specific magic stuff, like for like the magic culture, because it's because it's kind of underground. I haven't really developed it at all, but I probably should. And if I did, I might get some good opportunities for some more red herrings. Right. I probably also need to incorporate a few more characters. I tend to create very small casts of characters.
You do. The more characters you have, the easier it is, because then people are unclear about what's going on, but still planting enough clues so that they can be satisfied when they find out what's going on.
Yeah, this is a book I'm actually thinking it's written in first person, and this one would probably be better in third person. I wonder if I'm going to have to do like a super hardcore rewrite and like change it to third person and add more characters.
Yeah.
But man, there's so much that goes in it. This is why trying to keep this stuff in mind from the outset is so much easier, because you'll think through all these things and you won't have to go back and rewrite your whole book. You'll just write it in the first time.
It is, I don't know. It is definitely easier to do it up front, but I am also a pantser. So I do not plot out very well. Like I wrote,
for those who don't know, pantser means flying by the seat of your pants.
Yeah, and plotter is the other one. So if you outline, you're a plotter. If you just start writing with not as much direction, you're a pantser. Yeah. So I wrote an outline for NaNoWriMo, and I think that might be part of the reason I'm not motivated to write, because I already know too much about where it's going. Even though I had no inspiration to keep writing until I did the outline. So it's this weird paradox.
Maybe you need a looser outline.
Maybe, but it's pretty loose. It's only 3 pages.
Oh my God. So the way that I won't get into it too much, because you can go listen to our interview with Emily Collin at That Pretentious Book Club, because she goes in great detail about it. But basically it's this method of outlining where you basically like, she uses Save the Cat It's a
I've been hearing about that a lot, but I hadn't heard of it until we started. Like,
I forget who wrote it. I know, same. I forget who wrote it. It's actually like, I think it's like for stage plays or screenwriting or something. It's for like visual entertainment, but it's basically like a method of outlining where you have I'll use Emily Collins' metaphor. It's like you have a bracelet with a bunch of like stone settings that are empty in it, right? And so, like I have like 12 or something, and so then you can like even like have an individual scenes that you've already written out ahead of time that you like, and you can write them in whatever order you want because you know where they're going to go. And it's not quite as detailed as a lot of the other outlines that I've seen, which is great because I think when I've tried outlining, I've gone into so much detail that then it's kind of the same thing. I'm like, I already know what happens, so I'm not super motivated to keep writing it. But it's more like between each of the quote unquote settings or scenes or whatever, like things that need to happen in the book, you still have space. And that's where you don't know what's happening in between them all. And of course, it kind of evolves as you write it too. It's not like what you design it as, like what you would originally design it as. It's going to be something different. But I think I'm going to try that method for my NaNoWriMo book, even if I don't get very far in the month of NaNoWriMo.
You can just keep writing it after November.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's kind of what I was going to say. I just have trouble. First of all, I have trouble writing things out of order. And part of that is because I do really love foreshadowing. And I find it really hard to keep track of what readers are supposed to know by the time that scene happens if I don't write it in chronological order. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I do think foreshadowing can be harder in those cases. Still, you can totally do it. But I do think a lot of the time, if you write it out and then now you know where you're going with it, you can go back and do it. It just takes a lot more time. Yeah. Because that's essentially what happened to me. Like, first draft of my book, there was no foreshadowing. There was nothing interesting about it at all. And then I went back and over time, stuff came to me and revealed itself, whatever. And I think it flows pretty well now, but that takes a lot of time. So I do think if you're going to be a plotter, a lot of time up front, less time in the middle.
Yes.
And if you're going to be a pantser, not a lot of work up front, but a lot of
work in the end. You like significantly more work. This is the thing about the what Emily Collins was talking about in our episode was like, especially with this specific outlining method, the ones I've used before, I've definitely spent so much time outlining. I'm like, it's probably about equal, honestly. But this method is so basic. It can take as long or as little time as you want. But it will save you time versus now I'm going to have to go back. And this is a book that I think is already pretty good, but I haven't gotten an offer on it yet. Just a lot of interest. And I'm like, maybe that's what it needs to get that final step to get the interest, like enough interest to get it signed is maybe I need to go back and rewrite the whole dang thing in third person and incorporate more characters. So I have more red herrings and also flesh out the magic of the world too. You're good at that, at setting like rules for magic and stuff. Maybe I need to consult with you about my magic process.
I don't usually like to brag, but I do think that's my biggest skill.
You're very good at it. I'm writing down Karissa's rules for magic.
Yeah. I think that's another thing too. It's a lot of this depends on what genre you're writing in. Obviously, cozy mysteries, murder mysteries, very different than contemporaries or sci-fi and that kind of stuff. Yeah. I think specifically in fantasy, because I feel like I know a lot about this one. Yeah. I think magic systems, because you're going to have to explain the magic system anyway. Yeah. This is a really great place to plant red herrings and to plant your Chekhov's gun. Yeah. Because it's going to come across as an explanation anyway that is necessary anyway. Yeah. So whatever you plant in there is important anyway. Yeah. So you might as well use some of that stuff. Exactly. As your plot twist and as your mislead.
And see, I'm thinking this is a thing where because this book that I'm talking about, it's definitely designed to be the first book in a series. I don't know of how many books, but definitely in a series. And while magic only plays like it's basically just rumors of magic still existing in the first book, obviously I'm going to incorporate a lot more magic into this like following books, which means I need to know how it works so I can foreshadow how it works in the first book. So then when it like fully comes into bloom in the next books, it's like, oh my God, we should have seen this coming, which means I might ask you to read my book, Karissa, and tell me what you think about magic. Stuff. I will literally pay you to consult me on my magic system because
you don't have to.
I literally will though, because it's
okay.
It takes time. That's the thing too. Like, guys, don't be afraid to pay people to look at your stuff because it takes a lot of time. And I'm like, I'm not going to ask somebody to read my whole book and expect them to give me some kind of consultation on it without something in return. I mean, we could trade stuff too if you'd rather trade.
I was going to say, you can read my new first draft of book 1 because I think it has changed a lot since you read it. So
yeah, we could we'll trade and then we can do like, let me know what you specifically want me to keep in mind. And then I'll keep it that in mind. Because if I don't like have my eye on it in a critical way to begin with, I'll just be like, I love it so much. And
you're like, I have no criticisms. I'm like, Ash, but what about this thing? You're like, I wasn't even looking for that. Let me read it again.
Paying attention to that. I'll be honest. Yeah.
What did you think about the granola bar?
I'll be like, the what? When did they have a granola bar?
Right. Was it well placed enough? Did it plant a proper red herring? No? Okay.
I really want you to make like a short story, like in your book's universe that's about a granola bar now.
I absolutely could.
I think your dad would love it. I think you should give him that for Christmas. You should be like, I dedicated this short story to you. It's in my universe because you're so concerned with the fate of the granola bar.
Absolutely. Good hard to buy for.
See, there you go. I'm just here to help.
There you go. See, that's all I need. Now I will read your book for free. That's our exchange.
No, we'll still exchange, and you can help me with my magic system.
Okay, cool. That's super exciting because I love magic systems.
Now I have to change a whole book into third person from first person. You guys.
Okay, here's the thing. Are you going to add more points of view, or are you just going to keep it third person limited?
I'm going to make it probably. Dang it. I think I need to add more points of view too.
Because if you're going to do that, I would say change it. If you're just going to keep it third person limited, it probably doesn't matter and you would just keep it first.
Yeah, I think I need more points of view. I think it's just the focus is too narrow.
Yeah.
I think that's the problem. And now that I'm thinking some of like the specific feedback I got from like 2 different agents was that they wanted to know more about these 2 characters. And I was like, well, how, like, there's no time for like, that's a different person. My main character can't know more details about them because they're different people. It's a mystery. But now I'm like, oh, I guess I could make it a third person and widen the perspective. And then,
right.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Wow, guys, this Chekhov's gun episode has really shone a light on all the things.
I don't even know how much we've talked about Chekhov's gun, but it does lead into a lot of other discussions because I do think it is somewhat of a controversial concept. Like Hemingway was saying, you do need to have some red herrings. You can't just add only relative or relevant details because then people know where it's going and it's not interesting.
Yeah.
But you do want to make sure that you're planting enough that when your plot comes around, people are I want to say surprised but not shocked, if that makes sense. Like they recognize where it's coming from, but it's still like a what?
Yeah, exactly. They're not like, this doesn't belong in this book, but they're like, whoa, I didn't see it coming.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. You want it to be like a positive thing. You want this to be a positive experience.
Right.
Yeah, I think the whole idea of Chekhov's gun is really just like how do you do foreshadowing and with what and when, and can you should you foreshadow like multiple things, and then what red herrings, yes or no. Listen, Hemingway was like the master of concise and impactful writing. So if he says it's okay to use multiple red herrings that don't come to fruition at the end, at least in the way that you're leading people to believe they will, then I'd say you're good to do it. But do make sure they do something, even if it's just not what that you were leading your readers to think was going to happen.
Right. And I do think too, genre matters. So obviously if you're going to write, if your book is longer, which is usually going to be something like fantasy, sci-fi, more the speculative fiction realm, you can / should plant more because you need to keep people more engaged, and you're going to need to mention it more so that they're reminded of it every 100 pages or so. Yeah. If your book is shorter, which is probably going to be more contemporary, maybe historical, murder mystery kind of stuff, you want to make sure that you're not overdoing it with too much detail, because then they're going to be confused too. Even if you do have a gun on the wall, they're like, but there were also all of these books on the shelves and also this jacket on the chair, and how was I supposed to know which one was important? You need to be, I actually think red herrings for mysteries after writing cozy mysteries, which are like the cheesiest of the mystery genres. You have to be so specific about the red herrings. Like you
because you don't want people to realize it's a red herring. So you have to weave it so authentically into the world.
And it's hard because people are looking for it in those.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It is so much harder to use red herring / foreshadowing in a mystery genre book than it is in another book, which is why I've kind of gotten away, which is why I think people are like, yeah, that book is still good. And I'm still getting interest from agents, even though it is kind of like a fantasy mystery and my red herrings are not as flushed out. Because it's a fantasy book, I kind of got away with it, but I still not going to get me through the door.
I know, right? And I do love it when fantasy is combined with other genres, because I only like to read fantasy for the most part. I mean, I read other things, but
Keeps it real, man.
Yeah. And I love the idea of, you know, like a heist or a murder mystery or something within a fantasy world, because it just adds these extra layers.
It does.
You know what kind of a weird idea I had? I always thought it would be cool to do one of those hospital ER shows, but in a fantasy world. You know what I mean?
Oh my God, you should do it.
I know.
I can think of so many people who would be so, like, anyone who watched Grey's Anatomy.
Exactly. Grey's Anatomy combined with, like, I don't know, fantasy. All the fantasies. Depends on
Lord of the Rings. I'm just kidding. That'd be a hard one.
Lord of the Rings crossed with Grey's Anatomy.
Oh my God.
But anyway, I always thought that would be cool.
Oh, like Jolly Ranchers with like pig liver. Like that's what that sounded like to me.
Wow.
Just like a combination. You're like, no, it does not belong. But I'm sure there is a way you could do that.
Right.
Maybe not Lord of the Rings specifically.
Maybe not.
Maybe I could see it with like a serpent and dove type fantasy.
Oh,
where there are some
anything witchy.
Elements. Yes, anything witchy. Yeah. Interesting.
No. Anyway, you guys are kind of free to run with that if you want, because there's so many ways to do that.
She's like, not trademarked. Don't worry.
Yeah, don't worry. Because also
I said was trademarked. You guys don't take my ideas. It's already written.
Trademarked. Lewis is not. Keep that in mind. I wonder how like easy it is to tell which one of us is talking if they're like, but I have no idea who is who.
Listen, the one with the deep voice who says rude things sometimes. That's Tolkien / Ash. Go listen to That Pretentious Book Club. The voice that's over there and over here, that's Ash.
Use your investigative skills to figure out which of these two is the same.
Which of these, or just go watch us speak on YouTube. All of our episodes are also up on YouTube, you guys. So if you're like, what do their faces look like? I don't know why when I first started listening to podcasts, I was obsessed with like,
it's
what
so
do they
hard to
look
picture
like
people?
Though? And now I don't care anymore. But for some reason, I really used to care. I don't know why. I just wanted to put a face to the voice. And now I don't. But if you guys do, you can just go to the Scriptorian Society on YouTube.
Yep. I had a point with the whole ER thing. It would also be cool to have some kind of like NCIS or CSI in a magical universe. Why is no one doing that? That is such a cool idea. It's the same kind of idea that sells a lot, but done differently enough that I think people would like it.
You guys, this is your call to action.
If you were like, I don't know what to write, but I want to be a writer, do that.
We got you.
I want to read that.
We got you.
I think my point was going to be something like, depending on the genre, you need to plant certain kinds of clues, but I have lost my train of thought. So run with that. Don't know if it's on theme for the episode, but there you go. There's a bonus point.
It's all interconnected, so everything is on theme. We are never wrong.
Exactly. I do feel like sometimes our topics are, let's start here and then just see where it takes us.
And isn't that exactly what writing is like too?
Yes, true.
Well, when I started writing the book, I've been talking about this whole episode, it was not going to be a mystery in any way, shape, or form. And then at the end, I was like, holy crap, did I just write a mystery? It was an accident. It was definitely an accident. Wow, but I just realized that book is probably going to come up again in the next episode, because our next episode's about love triangles, and there is a love triangle in that book.
Oh, all right, we'll discuss it then.
Yeah,
like 10 minutes for us.
10 minutes. Yeah.
You guys will have to wait.
Yeah. You guys will have to wait a whole week. How does it feel? They're like, we have plenty to listen to. It's fine.
They're like, we don't really care about you. You're just like background noise.
Yeah. They're like, I can't study without some kind of sound on in the background. So that's you guys. Do you have anything else to say about Chekhov's gun?
I don't think so. Let me just go through my checklist. I want to talk about series potential, because I do think that you want to set things up in book 1 for the last book, as well as in the first scene with the end of that book.
Yeah.
And yeah, just foreshadow and red herring it, but don't do too much. And I guess I don't have a hard and fast rule for that. You don't want to convolute things, but you do want to make it complex enough that people are interested to keep reading. And that does take some kind of trial and error. It's okay to have too much and then take it out, or to start really small and then add stuff in later. It will be easier to take stuff out than to add stuff. So maybe you want to err on that side as you're beginning. I don't know, but I guess that's my last piece of advice.
Yeah, I think so. I think, just have a clear idea of where you're going. It sucks to sit down, and even if you're not going to outline it anyways, and you're like, no, I'm committed to my life as a pantser. Fine. Okay. But just sit down and think first. Where is this book going, and where is the series going? So you have it in your head. And then when that happens, the Chekhov's gun thing should happen kind of naturally.
Exactly. Yeah. I think so. I guess it's just a matter of acknowledging that that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
And kind of having that knowledge to maybe do it a little
more
intentionally, and intentionally.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, is that all we got on Chekhov's gun?
I think so.
Okay, cool. If you guys don't already, follow us on Instagram at the Scripturian Society. We are on, did I say on Instagram, or did I say social media?
I already don't remember.
We're okay. On both. We're on both. But I was going to say about our Instagram specifically, not only do we have like fun writery stuff, some fun writer memes that you guys can all relate to up there, but Karissa is so on top of it. She puts out like writing advice and writing tips and kind of like little summaries from each episode up. So if you're like, don't have time to listen to the whole episode this week, guess what? You can go follow us on Instagram and you can still get the best tidbits from the episode. So if you're like, my writing could use a little bit of work, I don't want to listen to a whole episode, I don't have time, you can go look at an Instagram post. Super easy, super fun. If you want to laugh, you can follow the Scripturian Society on TikTok. Because Karissa is the TikTok queen.
Thank you.
Yeah, she's got hella TikTok videos up. You guys should go check them out. And go listen to the Darkest Minds episode that Karissa joined us for at that Pretentious Book Club.
Do it. Yeah, read the book first. I mean, we kind of spoiled it in this episode, but still read the book.
Still, trust me. It's the thing about spoilers, not to go off on another tangent before we sign off the episode, but I feel like depending on in what detail you give the spoiler, it doesn't really count. Maybe that's just me because of my bad memory, but
I know I usually err on the side of no spoilers at all because I never know what kind of details I'm going to care about in the book.
Oh, I see.
And like other people will care about. But yeah, it's definitely like if it's premise, that's totally fine. And if you give a spoiler warning, I think it's fine because people can skip it. We should just like put in a little description like spoilers for this. So.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Oh, well, we'll see you guys next week, even though we're going to record your next episode in like 10 minutes.
We will look exactly the same.
Yeah, we will if you go follow us on YouTube.
Yeah.
Until next week, everybody. Keep writing.
And we'll see you on the next page.